Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Residents of Evil podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is live. We appreciate you guys coming by. Today, we are going to be doing our review of Resident Evil 4 Remake. Give you a little rundown of how this is going to go before I introduce everybody. But we are going to be doing our short, spoiler-free review from each member of the ROE team. Then we're going to go into some things we liked, some things we didn't like, and then we're going to go into a full-blown spoiler discussion. So if you're watching the replay, don't worry, I'll have timestamps linked down below. But thank you all so much for joining us. My name is JJ, and today I'm joined by ROE team member Cory.
Hello.
ROE team member Andy.
Let's go.
ROE team member Tony.
Hey everybody, how we doing this fine morning, afternoon, and night?
And ROE team member Beggy.
Hey guys, what's up?
Thank you guys for joining. This is going to be a fun discussion. There is a lot to talk about. So I think with that being said, we're going to jump right into it. But before that, just to let you guys know, thank you all so much for the support in the chat. We greatly appreciate it. To keep the discussion flowing, we're probably going to come back around to read all of the super chats and membership renewals after we finish our discussion. So we're going to do the first hour full review from the whole team, and then the next half hour is going to be us catching up with what you guys have to say and reading the super chat. So thank you guys so much for that. I hope you enjoy this podcast. It's been a while since we've done a Residents of Evil podcast, so I'm very excited to bring it back. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. If you guys enjoy this, please hit that like. Helps the channel, lets us know what you like to see. So with that being said, let's get into our short, spoiler-free review of Resident Evil 4 Remake. We're going to start with you, Andy. What is your short, spoiler-free review of Resident Evil 4 Remake?
The best modern Resident Evil game.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that.
I
Yeah,
can too.
that's it, right? Just what would?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What would you give it? Out of 1 out of 10 bingo daubers, how many would you give it?
I think it if it's not 9.999, it has to be 10. I mean, the game was pretty much flawless. Great length to it. The stuff that didn't quite carry over. Again, I'll keep it brief, but the stuff that didn't carry over wasn't a big deal, in my opinion. I really do. I really believe that this is a culmination of Capcom's efforts in the RE engine and in remake storytelling, and it's the best remake since the first Resident Evil remake in 2002.
All right, well said. How about you, Beggy? What's your spoiler-free review of Resident Evil 4 Remake?
Yeah, being someone that is kind of stubborn in terms of diving into new games and not just clinging to what I know, franchises that I'm familiar with, this is probably the single best single-player gaming experience that I've had since 2019. And that's because of a combo of Devil May Cry 5 and Resident Evil 2 Remake. But I do think that this is in its own tier, sort of maybe half a tier or 1 tier higher than RE2 Remake. And in every regard, it delivers masterfully. Very additive on the lore front, which obviously I was more ecstatic about than anything really else. Every villain, every side character has more definition and more depth to them, which in some cases is very creatively incorporated into the encounter itself, which we'll talk about later. But there's a lot of additions that sort of grant more meaning and purpose to characters that were once just really a piece in a boss fight, or otherwise forgettable, not really connected to the larger storytelling and Sadler's overarching vision. Every part of the architecture of the set pieces as well feels much more meaningful. They feel like they're parts of buildings and structures that could reasonably come to existence in our world, rather than a sort of slapped together contraption of sort of castle and island. Every part of those structures has a lot of meaning and a lot of depth and a lot of purpose in this story. And so overall, the most cohesive, in my opinion, remake of the 3 that we've seen in RE Engine, the most fun mechanically, and the most additive thematically. So overall, I would also agree and say that this is the best modern Resident Evil title.
Yeah, very well said. I think we should have Beggy go last because she always says things way better than I could, but you explained that very
She hit
well,
most
Beggy.
of my points.
Yep.
Cool, have our answers, man.
Very well said. So, Beggy, before we move over to Tony, how many 1 out of 10 bingo daubers, how many do you give it?
Probably a 9.5.
Wow. Okay, so both you and Andy are
Yeah.
very high nines. All right, we're going to move over now to row team member Tony. What is your spoiler review? Spoiler-free
review.
Spoiler-free review of Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Don't spoil Tony.
Don't do it.
No.
It good.
It's good.
It's good.
Good job.
No, I did. I really enjoyed this because, I think many people know that the original Resident Evil 4, I didn't really care for it that much. And I think that this game is better than the original, much in the same vein as what Resident Evil Remake did for the original 96 game.
Yeah.
And that's not to discredit what the original RE4 did for gaming and the industry back then, because, I don't want, because people had already came at me for that a while back, and they thought that I was shitting on the original RE4. It's just not me. Like I don't really like that style for that time period, because I was still kind of like, oh man, like I miss my my old school Resident Evil, but the shift to 4 was a hard change for many of us, but I did like it, and I still play the Mercenaries all the time all these years later, but the Resident Evil 4 remake is, I think, exactly what the original RE4 should have been, because this game is scary as fuck, like in so many areas, and it's there's a great level of difficulty. The enemies are more brutal than ever before. I feel that we'll save that for spoilers, but I think that the Ganados are like literally the most brutal thing in this game in many aspects. Again, I'll touch upon that later. Yep. But I really do like this game. I love the atmosphere. I love the characters. I love the emotion that's been put in it graphically. Atmosphere. Everything's just, I feel, is on point for this game.
Yeah, definitely. Well said, Tony. How many bingo daubers would you give it out of 10?
I have to give it a 10.
10. Wow, masterpiece.
It literally, I mean, like there are some flaws with it, but a game can still have flaws and technically be a 10.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's just it's literally just a game that gives you so much, and it kind of reminded me of like old Resident Evil games where there really was a lot to unlock by just replaying and going through it again, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the game, which is why I give it the 10.
100%. Well said, Tony. And we're going to move over to row team member Cory. What is your short, spoiler-free review of Resident Evil 4 Remake?
Well, I got my notes here, and they hit every single point so far.
So they took all your notes?
Pretty much. I mean, it was a darker, grittier.
Notes.
Yeah.
It was a darker, grittier take on the original.
Yes.
Which I appreciated. The mechanics probably my favorite part of it. The combat.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Once you get it down, man.
Once you get it down, it's so smooth and it's so good, dude. And it keeps that original essence. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That fast paced. They're always on you.
It gets tense when it needs to be tense. It gets slow for the exploration.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I give it a 9.5 out of 10.
9.5. Okay, so we're all in the nines. My thoughts on it exceeded my expectations. I'm very happy to say, because, we've gotten good remakes. We've gotten not so good remakes. And this one I was, these are big shoes to fill. The original Resident Evil 4 was monumental for gaming in general. It set the way and inspired so many others like Dead Space and so many games to come after it. And honestly, when I first played Resident Evil 4, when it came out on GameCube, I got a GameCube for Resident Evil 1 Remake and Resident Evil 4. It was a lot of fun, but it was not for me. I was not the biggest fan of Resident Evil 4, and as many of you know, if you listened to our earlier podcasts, I was a little critical on it. And it wasn't until about 3 years ago where I was thinking to myself, I have a Resident Evil YouTube channel, and Resident Evil 4 always gets so much praise, and I don't remember enjoying the direction Capcom took with the game at the time. It was fun, but maybe I should revisit it from a new perspective after years of Resident Evil games and shifts in the tone and where it's going, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Resident Evil 4 is one of the most, if not the most fun Resident Evil game for me to play, and so 3 years ago completely shifted my entire mindset on Resident Evil 4 to being one of my favorite in the top. And so when they announced the Resident Evil 4 remake, I was like, man, that the game is like is we're still playing it years later because it's got everything you need, right? Mm-hmm. It's a perfect game for the time, and it holds up. And so once this came out, my expectations were very high, especially when I seen all the reviews coming in, very positive. and I went into it, and it absolutely hit all the beats for me. It was very faithful to the original. It retained the essence of the original. Now, granted, some of the dialogue was shifted a bit. Some of the areas were shifted around. Some things were not in it, but it was replaced with other things. But the biggest thing for me was the adventure you go on, right? It's you start in a village, you're in way over your head, and then you're in a castle, and then you're on an island, and it retained all of that. It was fun to play. A lot of those replay value additions in the original, like items and gems and collecting things and selling them to the pawn shop, aka the merchant, that was all back, if not expanded. The combat system in it with the evade and the parry was a lot of fun once you got it down. It felt like there was a really good grind that wasn't too hard, but it felt like you were underpowered, and then you would slowly progress to be a badass agent Leon Kennedy. And it just hit all the beats for me. I absolutely enjoyed this game. I would probably give it 9 to a 9.5 bingo daubers out of 10. I feel like, in my opinion, this is my favorite of the RE engine Resident Evil games. And I love 2, and 2 has so much sentimental value to me because the original Resident Evil 2 is my favorite game of all time. And when they remade Resident Evil 2, it wasn't perfect, but I absolutely loved it. But this just adds so much more for the gameplay and for the exploration and the replay value that it just nailed that. I just wanted to have a lot of replay value. And now going from this back to 2, I'm still absolutely going to love 2. Well, obviously the original 2, but I'm still going to love the 2 remake. But not being able to parry, not being able to have that full mobility of your character, it's going to be a little bit
kind of boring going back on it.
It might be a little slower, but
you know what I mean?
Different types of Resident Evil games. But no, I think out of the RE engine Resident Evil games, this is my favorite. So yeah. I think it's a solid remake, and I'm very happy to say that They did it. But now I want to know in the chat too, what do you guys think? What would you rate 1 out of 10 bingo daubers? What would you rate the Resident Evil 4 remake? So now I want to go through each of you again, and I just want to see out of the modern Resident Evil games, we got Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake, Resident Evil Village, and now Resident Evil 4 remake. Where would you rank this on that list? Where would you put this in your favorite of the RE engine Resident Evil games? We'll start again with you, Andy. Where would you put it, man?
I think it would have to be first. Yeah, by far.
Number one.
By absolute mile. I mean, even if you take into consideration not just the remake RE engine games, but certainly 7 and 8, this is just the total complete package. As you mentioned earlier, like it's, even though ultimately you end up in the same place, compare it say to Resident Evil 3 remake. That game is so linear, like you really don't stray out of that path. But this has got so many like side quests and treasures, and it's crazy the depths that this game goes into. So yeah, 100% number one.
Number one. Okay. How about you, Beggy? Where would you rate this out of the newer RE engine Resident Evil games?
I would definitely have to agree and say it's the absolute best of them. One thing to note about 3 remake and about 7 and Village, the Winter Saga, both of those types of sort of control schemes with the options available, you have one option that's a sort of defensive maneuver. In 3 remake, it is the quick dodge. If you do it perfectly, you get extra frames to attack. And then you have the block button with Ethan Winters in Village and 7. And what we have here in remake, in 4 remake, I see as a sort of enhancement of those two sort of ideas, because not only are you allowing people to fall back on a defensive option with the parries and using the knife, but you're actively incorporating that as well into the resource management element that should accompany any survival horror experience. And the knife is something that players will soon learn to be afraid of losing. It's something that could be lost. All of them, your primary knife, you'll have to repair it, you'll have to spend money. Your mind is much more active in the sense that every single resource that you have at your disposal can be lost, and it will cost you money, it'll cost you time, and it'll cost you health in encounters not having that resource. In 7 and Village, the block, it's almost like the early phase of what would become a parry. And what I think about with the Lycans and pushing them back, or even fighting the giant Urias, the giant man, with the big hammer, it's quite outrageous, right? Where you could just kind of put your hands up and block it as Ethan. It doesn't really seem like something you could physically block anyway. So having something that only rewards you, especially in professional difficulty in 4 remake for perfect parries, rewarding very precise timing is a way to sort of make players be more cognizant and actively review what they can afford to try to parry or just try to avoid. So there's a lot more going on in the player's mind in terms of decision making and resource management with 4 that weren't present to that degree, to that level of precision and deliberation in the other RE engine remake games.
Yeah. So it was expanded upon and dive deeper into, and that's so it's your number 1 out of the RE engine games.
Yeah,
Okay.
easily.
All right, so we got 2 number 1s. Tony, where does this sit for you?
Yeah, this is definitely at number 1 for me because it pretty much goes, RE7, Village, 3 remake, 2 remake, and 4 remake. Because 4 changes some things, and when they change some things in this game, they move them around to other areas. Like there's dialogue that's like changed and tweaked a little bit, but it's still the same dialogue that you love in the first game. There's a really big focus on survival horror in this game, which I feel the other games didn't really have as much. Like in the other games, I never really worried about running out of ammo or anything like that. I always seemed to be able to find them with kind of ease. I think like in 2 when I first ran through it, 2 remake, I had some issues saving ammo, but RE4 remake, like I barely had 10 shells from my shotgun the whole time. There was a really big emphasis on that survival horror aspect. It didn't even really feel like action. It felt more like fear and panic. And to be honest, I really enjoyed that because that's kind of what I got from this. And that's why it ranked so high on the list, was because they found a way to bring survival horror back in many ways. Like they kind of did this in Resident Evil Revelations 2, where you guys played that recently, so it's fresh in your minds. You know how hard it was to kind of get ammo sometimes in that game, and it kind of seemed that transferred over to 4 remake, and I think they just did a great job with all the areas that they put into the game. I think a lot of them were retooled the right way, and anything that got taken out, I didn't really feel like we lost a lot by losing it. So, that's why I have to place it so high, because I just wasn't bored or tired playing this game at any time. Like there was times with the other games I was just kind of like, okay, can we get out of this area already? Or like, okay, I'm kind of getting bored with this bullshit right now. But like this game didn't have that effect on me because it kept me suckered in. Like I was stuck. I couldn't stop playing it. I really, really enjoyed what the game gave me. So that's why I got to put it at the number 1 spot.
Yeah. Well said. How about you, Cory? Where would you put it out of the RE engine games?
Yeah, it's definitely number 1.
It's number 1 for all of us.
I would go RE4 remake, RE2 remake, RE Village, RE7, RE3 remake.
Close to it. I'd go Resident Evil 4 remake, and it's tough for me to say because Resident Evil 2 remake has so much sentimental value to me. I absolutely love it for the reasons because I love the original Resident Evil 2. That's the game that got me into the series, and after they did Resident Evil 1 remake, I was like, do 2. And then what was it, like years later we did get one. But I would say that it is a step above Resident Evil 2 remake as far as just feeling like a very full game, right? There's just so much to it. So I would go Resident Evil 4 remake, Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil Village, then Resident Evil 3.
Yeah.
And that's not to say anything bad about the other ones. It's just that's kind of where I would rank these. I do say though, and as much as I really enjoyed this remake, it has some minor flaws for me, but it's still fantastic. I gave it a 9 to 9.5 out of 10. I will say though, I still hold Resident Evil 1 remake as like my best remake. Like it's still above it, but 4 is the best remake since Resident Evil 1 remake. Resident Evil 1 remake was just, man, that was like perfection in my eyes. So it's really hard to top perfection. But yeah, best of the RE engine games. So now I want to move into, if we go into what we like and what we dislike, should we move into spoilers, or do you think we can give what we like and what we dislike without spoilers? Because I feel like we might need to get into some of the actual game areas and enemies and so what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think we've already done the whole spoiler-free thing. So okay. Let's go ham.
All right, we're gonna go ham.
Agree.
So is there anything else you guys would like to say about this game, just real quick before we jump into our spoiler discussion?
Not without spoiling it.
Okay. All right. All right, sounds good. So I will say that we all very much so recommend this game. If you were on the fence about checking it out and you really enjoyed the original, I think you're going to be in for a fun ride. You're going to be in for a treat. Give it a try if you have not. If you don't have the means, wait for it to go on sale. But I definitely think it's a definitely worth picking up and checking out and playing. It feels like there is more than enough in the story, but we also have the Mercenaries DLC coming out this Friday, and those that mined the data from the game have found files for separate ways. So that's going to be coming down the road. It's not confirmed yet, but there's a very good chance we're going to see separate ways. So from what you're getting in this game, I think it's a great remake, and I think you're really going to enjoy the game. But now we are moving into spoiler territory, guys. So this is where we're gonna really dig into this game, things that we liked, things that we disliked. We're going to talk about character interactions. So if you have not finished the game yet and you don't want to be spoiled, now is your warning. I will give you 5 seconds, and we're going to jump in and just tear this game apart. We're going to go to the ending. We're going to talk about the ending. We're going to discuss where we think the series is going to go. So your 5 seconds is up. We're moving into spoilers. All right. I want to start with some of your highlights. What are moments from the game or aspects of the game, mechanics of the game that really stood out to you to make this game sit so high on your pedestal up to almost a 10? And I just want to really dig into it. So we're going to start with you, Andy. What are some of your favorite aspects of this remake? What really stood out for you?
I think it's the ability to tell the story of Resident Evil 4, in my opinion, better than the previous Resident Evil 4. It was always in the build-up to the release of Resident Evil 4 Remake, how are they going to achieve that? Because in my opinion, the game was already excellent. As I said earlier, the stuff that was cut out of the game, I went through the game and there wasn't one time where I thought, oh fuck, yeah, they didn't include that. Oh, what a great shame. The laser room, for example. I mean, that was really a homage to the Paul Anderson film. It was just a complete throwaway, but it had the throne in it, so you still got to the same place.
Yeah.
But they expanded on loads of other things. It was honestly, just such an exceptional. It just takes your breath away talking about it. It's just such an exceptional game, and as streaming it, it's almost too long because you're like, oh man, where did I get to? There's so much to do in this game. But yeah, obviously it goes without saying the dark atmosphere of the game was very welcomed. Even though the original, by comparison, is gritty, I mean, this was another level. This really, really was another level. I liked how there was a lot of dark locations in the game, just generally set at night. I liked the village. The village, even though it was very similar to how it was in the original, also very, very different. The way the Ganados behave, very similar to the original. I love the infighting of the Ganados and the chainsaw. Yeah. I don't know if he's called I don't think he's called Dr. Salvador. I think he's just called Chainsaw Man in this game, is he not?
Was he not called Dr. I don't think he was called Dr. Salvador in the original. I think there was a piece that came out.
Yeah, it was.
Or was he? No. Actually had the name Dr. Salvador? Okay. All right. I wasn't too sure on where that name came from.
I know I definitely didn't hear it in the remake, so I thought maybe they're just calling him Chainsaw Man for marketing purposes and whatnot.
Potato Sack Man.
Yeah, the Potato Sack Man. But yeah, that was beautiful. The bear traps, even though they were so frustrating, it was like, yes.
Everywhere you look, there's a bear trap.
And input, it takes it a step further because, yes, it's a risk to you, but at the same time, the NPCs are falling over it. And then you kick someone and a leg falls off. Yeah. The Plaga still being alive in corpses was freaky to see. I loved seeing that. Just there were a couple of things. I'll let you guys continue on, but
that's what stood out to you.
It's almost precisely. You were talking briefly earlier about Resident Evil 1 Remake and why Resident Evil 1 Remake was so good. It's because it took the original and it turned it up to 11. It took itself seriously. And that's what I'm not saying that Resident Evil 4 didn't take itself seriously, but this took what was great about Resident Evil 4. It was people that understood how good Resident Evil 4 was, the real fundamentals of what made Resident Evil 4, and just jacked it up to 11. Yeah. So.
All right.
My initial thoughts.
How about you, Beggy? What were some moments or aspects that stood out to you as some highlights from this remake?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's definitely part of their core design philosophy is sticking with the replayability, all of the different mechanical variation of how you can play this game. You can go through the game without ever trying the bolt thrower or the TMP or whatever you want. You could stick to your guns, pun not intended, and you could have your new game plus or a new game on a different difficulty using an entirely different loadout and still end up in the same spot, having two completely different experiences, loads of side quests, and new ways to sort of end encounters. One, good example being the bell, shooting the bell in the village segment. There's another one later on where you could actually stop a red zealot from actually triggering a mechanism in the
Yeah,
castle by like preemptively planting mines or a grenade there. So
I love that.
there's all sorts of creative, strategic, think outside the box solutions for getting past various set pieces. And that was like my biggest compliment towards this game in terms of mechanical depth and all of the set pieces being just like phenomenally crafted action set pieces from just a game design perspective. There being so many different solutions, uh, every imaginable array of different enemies and bioweapons actually getting in your face. Beyond all of that, though, I think the additive lore this time around felt more complete and it felt more cohesive than either of the two previous remakes, and that was something that this game more so needed than the previous two as well. RE4, having that little gap in connection and coherence to umbrella of the previous titles. Now we have this very nicely detailed backstory that is woven through multiple different actors. Sadler, who now has like a lineage of different Sadlers,
Yeah.
right? There's Hester, Keenan, Adam, all of
Francis.
these different Sadler characters who were exiled to an island. And the island serves that fundamental purpose of being that place of exile where those that adhere to Los Illuminados as a cult and they're anxiously, eagerly awaiting its resurgence as a sort of group, as a sort of phenomenon, are sort of pressing on. And you see it on their epitaphs. You see it on Hester and Keenan Sadler's epitaphs. Uh, Rejoice, my brothers and sisters, the day will come. We will basically reintroduce our faith to this region. So now the island is not just a sort of separate island to travel to with like the experiments and all that. It's a sort of birthplace of the philosophy that would become the resurgence of the religion in the modern time. And so little details like that with the island, with the Sadler lineage, the Salazars, everything that they've done with Ramon. This is my favorite part of the additive lore beyond anything else. And this is why, Salazar is someone in the original that we understood as this very sort of quirky animated character. Now we have this very, very detailed backstory of his younger traumas and the way that they've woven his story into the sort of backstories of two other figures, one being the housekeeper who has her own files in this. She's the sort of childhood housekeeper and caretaker of Salazar since young, and and also Isidro. Isidro is a new character, and he is our Verdugo now. He is the father of all insect bioweapons, and so he creates the U2, which is the Novistador, and the U3s, which would become the Verdugos. But Salazar, in my opinion, is the most compelling of all of those. In his files, in his encounters with the housekeeper, one of his servants would mutter the word "pulgarcito" behind his back, and that is actually a reference to a pretty famous folktale. Tom Thumb is the English variant, and Pulgarcito is the Spanish version, but it's virtually the same everywhere around the world. It's a story of someone that is, there's a Japanese variant called Little 1 Inch, and he's a boy who never grows larger than 1 inch. And they're all essentially the same story. Very heroic, dauntless character who gets eaten up and he gets swallowed up by some beast every time. In Japan, it's an oni. In Europe and in England, it's a wolf. And in the Spanish folktale, it's also a wolf. And what are you actually doing in Salazar's boss fight is so incredible because he wants Leon to play a part in his script, and all of that sort of trauma of his younger years, all of that sort of just really troublesome development of his younger self being called having that smaller stature and being mocked for it, that all comes out in his boss fight, in his actual dialogue. He says, now you're the Pogorcito, how does it feel to be a tiny sickly demon child and projecting outward what he feels for himself? And what's so fascinating about that boss encounter is that despite Salazar's attempt to make Leon feel like the small one, like the dwarf, and like the ailing one, the sickly one, he himself, what is Salazar doing physically during the boss battle? He's emerging from the mouth of some large beast that has consumed him. That's what the dwarf character does in every variant of the folktale around the world. It emerges out the mouth of the wolf. It comes out of the mouth of the Oni in Japan. And Salazar is sort of peeping out of the mandibles of this terrible mother, this Queen Plaga, and he is actually, trying to make Leon believe that he's belittled him, he's made him the smaller role, and he's triumphing over Leon. So there's so many layers of depth thematically to Salazar, to Isidro or Verdugo, to Sadler that you could find in this game, and you can actually apply to the boss battle in a way that elevates those thematic messages. And that to me was like the single most compelling aspect of this game.
Yeah.
How those files, you just can't ignore them because they offer loads of insight into the character's psyche, how they even try to combat you in the boss battle. So there's so much.
Yeah.
I was so happy.
I figured
to figure
when I
that all
was
out.
reading the lore in the game, I was like, Beggy's going to be
Yeah.
very happy about this. And while you were going through talking, I feel like I got Andy here and Cory, who, like, if you're young and in church or if you're young and in
I
school,
was thinking church the whole
they,
time.
they
too.
can't behave themselves.
Well, it was fun.
Yeah. No, but
I was just going to say, did me and Beggy play the same game? Because I did take off of that one.
You did? Yeah.
That's glorious.
Yeah.
It's been an
it
education.
goes deep though. No, and I do appreciate that. All the
do too.
files too on Luis and just the everything. Like it definitely added, which is odd for a new game to take lore that was in the original and then expand on it.
Yeah.
Usually they shorten it down, they're like attention spans are short. They want that instant gratification. TLDR, let's get to the game. But they actually added all those lore files in
Yeah.
and expanded. So there's a
Nailed it.
lot.
Especially when you consider this region and this time period, this historical time period during the Reconquista between the Crusaders fighting for Christianity versus other groups that adhere to paganism and Islam and other beliefs outside of Christianity. There's a lot of folklore that's very, very unique to the Catalan sort of time period, and Pesantha being one of the Verdugo creatures, that is also a creature that you'll see in a lore
I was
piece
gonna say
pretty
you got a
soon.
video coming out about
Yeah,
some
for-
similar
for-
topics. So stay tuned
So
for
there's
that.
there's a lot to draw back from, and that's why they
Yeah.
did it. It's awesome.
Yeah, and Cory, what were some highlights that stood out to you from this game? Something that just
Everything, but
whoa,
no, like I said, my favorite part's the combat.
combat's a lot of
Mechanics are
fun,
so
yeah.
good. The graphics are freaking outstanding. The
Graphics are-
merchant they nailed.
They really did expand on the
Changed them
merchant.
a little bit, but I mean, it
Yeah.
was all good. I love the whole trading system now for spinels, or however you pronounce
Spinals, spinels, yeah,
that. Biggie, how do you say
Spinels,
spinel?
Spinels, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
but yeah, I love that. They make it more
Yeah.
valuable. Other than that, everything else that they said. I mean,
yeah. I think for me personally, there's like three things that really stand out. There's way more, but
There's
the
a million
three
things.
highlights that stand out for me is the exploration. When I said I would love to see treasures and jewels and collectibles return, they did that, but more. Like they added more. They
Yeah.
added ways of combining gems so you could get more currency from the merchant.
I loved that.
I absolutely love that. The fact, like, and Chapter 4 has the best open exploration, in my opinion, of that game. And there's a lot of open exploration. Every area is kind of like a mini open world game that slowly unlocks over time, which I always say is kind of how Resident Evil at its core is. But chapter 4, where you get to get in the boat and you get to go explore everywhere, and you got this one area where they got chickens and you can get a golden egg. Then they got this other area where you got the 2 hikers that were showed at the very beginning of the game, and you find their bodies in that altar where the intro of the game starts. Like little things like that give you a reason to go back through and play again and explore. I absolutely love that. So they took that system and they improved it. They added so much more to that, and I love that. Another thing that stood out to me is all the little details. The way that Leon loads his magazine, the way he flicks the magazine out, the way that the Plagas is kind of sticking out of the head when you dome split them. Just so many little details that really stood out and made it show. It shows the devs, they're passionate about what they're making and they're putting time into it. They're not just remaking it to remake it. They're actually taking care, and I love that. And then another aspect of the game that really stood out is the mechanics, right? Resident Evil 4 is so much fun to play because it's literally shoot in the leg, knife, 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 and then you get some cool combos and you can do some suplexes. Well, Resident Evil 4 brings that back, but now you got the evade, you got the parry. There's no more QuickTime events. It's all in game, and it's handled so well that once you get that down, like I said, you go through that game feeling like a badass. And it just adds to wanting to go through and play it, get good, and just tear through the village.
Right.
You first get in the village and you're like, oh my god, I remember doing this just fine in the original, and now I'm in over my head and I died. And then when you go through it, after multiple times later, you just go through and you just start throwing roundhouses, suplexes, and you just feel like a badass. And it makes you want to go back through the game and just play again. So yeah, those were kind of like the 3 things that really stood out to me. And there's, like I said, so much more. But now we're gonna go into what.
Can I say something? Because you completely skipped me.
Did I?
Oh yeah.
Blame Beggy. No, I'm sorry, Tony. Tony, what are some highlights for you, Tony?
Can I say something?
No, we're moving past it. No, sorry about that, Tony.
I just so I did feel like I to touch what Andy talked about the bear traps and stuff. I felt like Ace Ventura in the second movie where he just got the spear in both legs, because you take like 1 step, then you take 2 steps in. I'm just like,
Yes, exactly.
like and then I saw like one of the villagers like setting them, and I'm like, they set the traps too.
Yes.
I was just like, Jesus Christ! Like it was like really like intense to see like how like the AI has been upped in this. Like it's just like no matter where you go, like you feel that you aren't safe anywhere. And again, it kind of does more with the survival horror aspect, that you don't feel safe wherever you go. Like, there's just enemies upon enemies. The ammo is not there. It's absolutely fantastic. I love that aspect. I love the fact that it just. This is what I feel Resident Evil should have been. Like when we saw what Resident Evil 4 originally looked like, with the like the darkness and like the what do you call it there? Like the hallucinations, and Leon on that airship and everything. He was infected, like those old beta versions. Yeah. A lot of that I feel is leaked over to this, which is kind of what happened with the Resident Evil 2 remake. A lot of things from 1.5 made it in.
Can I interject 1 second? I'm sorry to cut you off, but was there not an opportunity missed there when you're walking with Ashley and it's all like a hallucination, to just get a hookman going through and hitting all those shadow people coming at you?
Right.
That would have been sick. That would have been sick.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Like when that was happening, I'm like, oh, I feel there should be something else in here, like a hookman
just
or whatever.
coming at
Like I was kind of hoping that there was gonna be like a painting in the castle of a hookman, but like there was a prop. You had to go find the actual hook, throw it in into the painting to unlock something. But when you do, it drops the fucking hook on you.
That would have been sick.
Right?
That would have been sick.
And you have to like parry it.
Yeah, you have to parry.
And I think that would have been like a really cool throwback. But there was kind of a throwback to the Hookman scenario. Do you remember when you're walking down the hall and the deer head falls off the wall?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I think that's a little nod to those. I like that.
But sorry to cut you off. I think that was continue on. Carry on.
Yeah, no. Like that was a point I was gonna make anyway. Was the Hookman stuff? Like so I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, it was just there was just never a moment where I was like, I'm bored. I want to stop this. And I gotta give credit to Nick, our buddy Nick Apostolides as Leon in this.
Killed it.
He is so fucking amazing. Like he literally goes full John McClane in this. And I had to work a Die Hard reference in here somehow.
Yeah,
but,
you got it.
Like. It's I know he feels the same way, because he's a fan of Die Hard, and There's just the one-liners, the dry wit, and like Leon's character in general from like clearly what he suffered from. Like we found out so much from that intro video of like what he went through. It's just like, you know, like we knew in the old games, okay, he was forced to be an agent, and that okay, yeah, then he's an agent. No, he was forced to be an agent, and he like literally almost died through training and other missions and shit.
Yeah.
Like it's affecting him. I just like the way he portrayed that is absolutely amazing because he portrayed the rookie cop perfectly as Paul Haddad did years ago in the original Resident Evil 2 remake, and then in the Resident Evil 4 remake, he's doing exactly what Paul Mercier had done. You know, like the wit and the humor's still there, but now he's more of a depressed, affected character. Because we never really seen how the trauma of a lot of these things affected a lot of the characters as they went on. I mean, like Leon kind of in like the CGI movies where he kind of became a drunk. You know, we saw like, you know, how Joe was affected in the Resident Evil 3 remake, which very good on that too. So again, I just think that this game and its atmosphere, its pacing, you never felt that any area you were in, you were there for too short a time or too long a time. It was exactly the length it needed to be, and there's always seems to be something to do. Find the medallions, do this, do that. Like you said, the gems that you find, the statues, putting them in and finding the different locations. The gun range, holy shit! Like I felt bad because on stream I kept doing the gun range.
Fun.
I'm like, oh, I'm sorry guys, I just love this. It's so fun. And the stream's like, no, it's good, keep going, because like it's definitely nowhere near as easy as the first one. Like this is brutal, and it's you, the player, having to learn how to just be a better shot and work with what's given to you and work around the obstacles that they give you in that. And it's just, again, at the end of the day, it just feels like so complete, and you want to stay in certain areas for a lot longer, and then, you know, you never feel bored. Because like I said, they did take some things out from 4 that didn't work, and some other things that may have worked.
Yeah,
but
we'll move into that next, but to the gun range there too. Like, how awesome is it that they brought that back, but not only brought it back, but expanded on it and gave the actual collectibles a reason to collect? So I always said that I would love to see those come back because they're just cool little collectible pieces. But now you can actually hang those from your attaché case.
They're charms
and yeah, they're charms now. And so it's like it's super cool. You get the coins, then you go turn the coins in, you get a mystery charm, and it actually gives you perks. And then to that, there's actually 2 callbacks to the original in there. There is, if you get the shotgun, you get the 5% increase to your speed, which is a callback to the Ditman glitch. And then at one point, there is a all-green pirate that pops up you can shoot, which is a callback to the Green Man doing the peace signs that they found like 14 years later in the game. That's super cool.
oh yeah, that guy like way off in the
my favorite
distance
guy.
after Mike gets killed.
That's Cory's favorite.
I love him.
Yeah, they kind of did a callback to both those things. And just like the game as a whole, there is so many callbacks to the original game. But not only that, if you look at the 2 and 3 remakes, they've almost completely changed the dialogue. Still similar, but different. This, they kept a lot of it in. Where's everyone going? Bingo, hasta luego. Like, all that stuff is still here, which is super cool to hear. Because it's kind of Resident Evil 4. It's more of an action game than anything. It's a lot of fun to play. It has horror elements, but it still doesn't take itself too seriously. And I know they were trying to do that, and I felt like they did a good job of balancing serious and just having fun. And I think that was a way to show it, is some of the dialogue was exactly the same. And yes, Nick did a fantastic job as older Leon. And it's crazy because at times when he was doing lines, I felt like I heard Paul Mercier in there. It was like a mix between, like he was doing a mix between his Resident Evil 2 rookie cop and the more grizzled, hardened, badass agent that Paul Mercier did. So it was like a really nice balance he had there. Yeah, definitely agree. Definitely.
It really was.
So now we're going to move on to some of the things that maybe we didn't like so much, some things that we were kind of hoping to see we didn't, or maybe a situation went down that you kind of hoped would go a different way. And this isn't too, this is more being constructive on it, some things we would like to see. So we'll start with you, Andy. What were maybe some flaws that you had?
The attach case was far too small.
Did you upgrade it?
Like, I just felt, yeah, I upgraded it to the, yeah, I got the base level one. What, you can upgrade it? I found at the end of the game, I was like, man, I just keep having to throw stuff away or put it back in the storage box. Again, the storage box is a bit bizarre because I always felt like when I was wanting to access the storage box, I would go to the merchant, not the typewriter.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd have to go, oh, hang on, no, sorry, let me just turn around and walk
go over here.
10 feet and go to the storage. I think there was some interesting interesting directions with the voice acting.
Yeah.
Definitely with particular regard to Ada and Krauser. I think that the tone that and the direction that they went in was a lot. You know, like how you said, they retained a lot of the things from the original Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
I felt like those two in particular, and up and including Wesker at the end of the game, were drastically different.
Yeah, his was the most different, I think,
from their previous incarnations. I just felt like Krauser just didn't have that grit to him.
I can see that, yeah.
That I was expecting him to have, and yeah, Ada was just. I see a common constructive criticism that she was quote unquote bored. I don't believe that. I feel like she was more stoic.
Yeah.
She was a mercenary. She's trying not to give a fuck. But that, to me, that's more of a good thing, because at the end of the game, you have that turn in character of actually, no, I've been a bitch this entire time, but I'm going to do the right thing now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that to me actually lent itself perfectly. So it ended up being a positive. But definitely Krauser, I was like, I'm not really feeling
hit
this.
for you, yeah.
I didn't mind Krauser.
I personally, I didn't mind Krauser. To Ada's, that was definitely different. But I think the reason why it was so different for me is because I'm so used to Jolene portraying Ada, because I played the Resident Evil 2 remake a million times. So when I think of Ada, I think of either the original Ada voice actress, or I think of the Resident Evil 2 remake voice actress. So hearing this was definitely different. As I played the game multiple times, though, like, it was fine. I think she did fine. Yeah. It wasn't as jarring as the first time I heard it. But it was just kind of a different portrayal or a different tone that I wasn't used to, and it took me a minute. But for I think it was the first trailer when I heard Jack Krauser's voice, I was like, oh man, that doesn't really fit at all. But it was like multiple trailers after that where I was like, that's fine. I think that's better than I was expecting.
Same.
But I could see that is some ongoing issues. How about you, Beggy? What are some things that maybe you didn't like so much, or some flaws? Something that
I actually feel kind of hard pressed to find ones without nitpicking, because this game, it just, everything about it feels so cohesive, and everything complements everything else.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things mechanically that was a little bit frustrating was the severe lack, or rather difference, from the original game's invincibility frames for Leon's animations versus this one, because there were so many instances where you just want to like break a crate, you just want to pick up some ammo, you just want to like reach in the ground, pick up some pesetas. There's instances where you just want to do some simple animation and you're just not invincible whatsoever. And then compounding kind of on top of that can be a little bit frustrating in some situations, especially corners, is when enemies, ganados, will do one attack animation, say like an axe or a rake or something else, and they'll immediately after run past you, and another one will grab. So the sort of invincibility frames in general have been reduced like dramatically, to the point where you can get hit by 3 or 4 different attacks by ganados, and there's not really much room for defensive counterplay in between.
Yeah.
It just sort of stacks because you found yourself in a bad spot. And obviously, like the space around you matters very much so. But there's also a very good counterpoint to that. And that is that in this game, it's not so much about believing that you can just stomp down entire hordes of ganados without issue, even if you have all of the sort of mechanical nuances of the game worked out. It's more so you're supposed to evade those situations as much as you can. Once you find yourself in it, that kind of stacking of damage, that kind of comboing, it's almost like, it makes it kind of elevates the player's sense of agency of, oh, this is happening to me because I let myself get in this position. Yeah. I didn't take care of this ganado. I didn't sort of position myself correctly in a manner that would allow me to evade them otherwise. So I'm getting like, these stacking hits. And there's another thing that's like a negative and a positive of when you play hardcore and professional, especially professional, oh my gosh, the reliability of certain attacks to stun a Ganato or a Zealot is very much reduced. You can't reliably stun someone with a headshot unless you shoot them like 4 or so times in the face. And even then, it might kill him, might not get that. So trying to actually bring out an opportunity to roundhouse kick or to suplex someone, that's not reliable in the way that you could always rely upon it in the original game. There is a level of randomness and that reliability being reduced in the hard difficulties. I think that's, of course, it's frustrating because it's like I would like to just kick down 3 of these Ganados with one staying in front, but it's like, but with that option sort of being, um, weakened as for the player, you can't rely on that as much. You have to more mindfully manage your powerful guns and spend ammo with more deliberation.
Yeah.
So I think those are some things sort of like gameplay wise that it could poke holes in. But if you ask me about the story, there are little things that had me questioning like why they're even possible. One of them, and this is something that I had a discussion about with Susie, was that in the files it's revealed that in this remake, only one person has a plaga with the dominant organ in it, the dominant plaga, and that's Sadler, as opposed to the 4 in the original, right? Krauser, Mendez, Sadler, and Salazar. So now, with only one person, Sadler, having that dominant plaga, how is it that these sort of red zealots, these chiefs in red, how are they able to awaken Las Plagas and cause them to erupt at will in the Ganados with the recessive gene? So there's like a little bit of like missing stuff there, but it's also kind of a mystery. So again, kind of negative and a positive at the same time. Of it almost seems like they have some kind of exalted species of plaga that isn't quite a dominant, but it's not as controllable as a recessive. So it's something in between. And then along that same line, those chiefs are apparently able to, for El Gigante, this is cool, they're able to put El Gigante to sleep with an incantation, is what they
Magic.
call it. And it's like, how would they be able to do that if they don't have a dominant plaga? And Susie's theory was that like maybe it's something in the staffs. Maybe the staffs gives them some kind of
Doesn't
power.
it have like that red thing hanging off of it,
yeah,
right? Would that
the-
be like
There-
Sadler's blood?
Well, it's kind
maybe?
of like the blue light, right? Plagas don't like the blue light. Maybe the red light.
Oh, was it a light? I think it was like blood. I was thinking
It-
Sadler's
It could be.
blood
It
or
could be
something.
something.
Yeah, so all sorts of see, this is like you could view it as a whole in one regard, but then in another regard, you could see it as a potential mystery. And there are so many aspects of the original that are defined now that have less mystery to them, but simultaneously we have these new mysteries to kind of think about like what is the actual role of these red zealots in taming the beasts. And there's so many cool things like that. So where you think that there are sort of like plot holes or weaker parts of the lore, they're always intriguing. At least they're not sort of missing out on crucial info that would otherwise allow you to rationalize everything, because some of that mystery I think is better when it's preserved. So
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Tony, did we cover you? We could you, yeah.
No, you
Yeah,
didn't.
Nope.
yeah, smooth straight
Tony.
on.
I was about to do it again. No, I'm just kidding.
So things that I didn't like. The thing of it is, Leon's mobility in this kind of did bother me. I know you can get the speed boost charm and everything, which is really cool, but again, it's kind of like a gamble to get that stuff. And I didn't get that great of charms during my first run. I was like, man, I suck at gambling. This sucks. So like that for me, and like Beggy touched upon the invincibility frames.
Yeah.
Like I would be like, I'd jump out the window and I'd start getting up, and then boom, I'd get like sucker punched or
You wanna do that
I'd get,
again?
like, a sickle in the back.
You want to do that? Show us again. You actually punched yourself. Tony, I'm joking. Don't actually punch yourself. But yeah, no.
Dude, I'll do whatever I want.
All right.
Hurt. But no, like I really do feel that like there was kind of a little bit mishap with the with the hits and
Yeah.
everything. I really felt that at times I shouldn't have been getting ganged up upon, because I didn't also have a chance. You couldn't parry anything either.
Yeah, when they're
there was no option to parry when that happens. So it seems like a minor thing. Again, it's not game breaking or it will turn you off from the game. It's just a little frustrating. And I think I don't know how I feel about this. Like I'm still 50-50. I'm still kind of like going over it in my mind. I don't like how you can't put anything in a box. Like, you can only put guns in
Yeah,
there. You
we
can't
complained
put
about that.
resources. You can't hoard resources. And I guess that's kind of a good thing, because that's one of the things I liked about the game, was the fact that I felt that I didn't have resources at a lot of time. So maybe that made it a little bit too easy if they did that. So I'm, again, still 50-50 on that. I know other people kind of wished you could just, keep keep things in a box and
Yeah.
stuff. So
That was
and then sorry,
Oh
go ahead.
no, that was something
Yeah.
we mentioned. Like, oh, how come I can't put everything in there? It's only weapons. But I will say,
It would be too easy.
it is very nice that you can now store weapons, because
That's
now
nice.
for multiple playthroughs you can level up every weapon. So I'm okay with it. I was a little frustrated too. Like, why can't I put
Right.
this in there? Or why can't I do that? But I get it, and I feel like I'm being too picky if I say, hey, I should be able to put all my gunpowder and shit in there
Right.
too. But I totally get it. Yeah.
I think maybe like if there was like an unlockable mode or something like that that gave you the option to do that when you beat it on like S plus or something
Yeah.
like that. It's like, hey, you can store everything in the box now. I think that would give us a little bit more fun playthroughs and stuff. Not that this game, like I said, has plenty of replay value
Yeah.
already, but I think like some people touched upon the voices. Krauser's voice grew on me. I think when I really watched his performance, I was like, okay, you know what? Yeah, like it's. I'm not trying to compare him to the original one, but given how Krauser was supposed to be, the raspiness of the voice just didn't hit me at first when I heard that early trailer, but it did grow on me, and I think he gave a damn good performance, especially like at the end and shit like that, which, let's face it, it's not the end, even though it's the
Yeah,
end,
we're gonna
it's not the
after
end.
this. We're gonna touch on the end and where we think the series is gonna go.
But I think like with Ada's and everything, I'm gonna give constructive criticism because I've studied acting and writing, and I have friends who are actors and directors, and it was a very flat performance. But sometimes I heard it and I'm like, there it is, it's right there. So like I say to that, it's just like, I think she did great. I just think it was how it was directed.
Yeah.
That's the thing you got to understand. So other than that, like, I don't really have any other big issues about this game. I think that, like I said, the reason why I gave it a 10 despite some of the flaws is just because what's so good about this kind of outweighs the flaws heavily. That's just how I feel about
And we
it.
should touch on too, like, there's, for me personally, and I think for everybody here, there is far more positive than good. But if we're gonna go through a whole discussion on things we like, we got to touch on some of the things that maybe we didn't like so much, just to kind of balance things out. Overall, we gave it all 9 and up, so
Right.
a very solid game. Cory, what are some things that stood out for you maybe that you didn't like so much?
I mean, they said it all. I mean,
They touched on
everything that I would have said. Honestly, I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now.
There was a few things for me that I remembered as I was playing, like, oh yeah, that room. Where was that room? But some of my issues could be corrected with the Separate Ways DLC. Once that comes out, they might return to some of the areas, the gondola area, the laser room. There was just a few, right, that I was, the world has been recreated so beautifully, so dense, so lived in. I would have loved to see the gondola area, the big old pit, right, that shows you how vast this area is. And we did get to see the gondola, so I was like, I can't wait to ride that later. It's one of my favorite areas. I didn't see it, but it potentially could be in Separate Ways. Again, not a deal breaker by any means. I will say, however, though, despite not seeing some of the areas, the U3 is another thing that I really did like about the original that I didn't see, but again, that could be in Separate Ways. So these things are minor, and if they weren't in there, they're either replaced with a different area. Not a big deal. However, there is one thing that I just did not like at all, and it doesn't break the game for me. I still love the game, but I just do not like this at all. I feel like it's lazy story writing. It was the gun jam. It was when Ashley shoots the two and goes to Leon, and it just so happens to perfectly jam. I think that could have been fixed by her either just unloading, like with whatever will she had left. If she would have just shot one, went to shoot the second one, and as it was going to Leon, she just starts unloading it. So right when it gets to him, it's empty. Because
that would have been sweet, actually.
Yeah, I think that would have been a better way, because like, how does the gun just so happen to jam right when it gets to Leon? That's it. That's the only complaint I have.
Did it not run out of ammo then? I thought it ran out of ammo.
No, it was a full
I didn't
mag.
realize the gun jammed.
You can see the bullet jammed in the
chamber. And then Leon checks it and actually ejects it. But yeah, out of the entire game, and as much as I love it, that is the only actual complaint I have, is that was just too convenient. Aside from that, though, everything's fantastic, and some of the areas I would like to see potentially will come in Separate Ways. So that is some of our flaws. Now we're going to move on to that ending. And where do we think Resident Evil 4 is going to, or where is the series going after this? So as you guys can see, we did get, and then we are into spoiler territory, we did get to see the reveal of the new RE engine Albert Wesker, which means that person exists in real life. That guy, that he exists. And with that, we got to see he did the very evil villain thing where he revealed to Ada his entire evil plot, which is fine. You know, that's what Albert Wesker does. He likes to brag and boast about his evil plan.
Right.
But it made her change her mind, and they course corrected somewhere else. But we get to hear his new voice, which definitely is no longer British. So it's a very
American,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's
boys, I'm out.
There goes the Andy shit. But no, I really like the voice in this. I like this different take. I mean, we're so used to that same sort of style that was kind of pioneered by Richard Waugh. And again, that's like my favorite voice actor for Albert Wesker, probably because I watched Wesker's Report a million times before I'd go to bed every night. But to hear something kind of different on it, I was like, yeah, this is fine. And the way he looks, I feel like he looks
the best.
fantastic. Yeah, he looks really good. And as you guys remember that leaked concept art we got, I would say like 4 or 5 months ago, that is his look. He's got the blue button-up shirt with the black vest and the pants. But no, I think he looks great. But then he, if you look up at his screen, he has there's some callbacks to Resident Evil 5 there. So before I get into that, I'll start with you, Andy. Where do you think the series is going to go from here? Do you think they're planning something bigger? Do you think they're going to go through and do more remakes? What do you think?
I mean, it would be textbook if they went into a Resident Evil 5 remake, but this is the overarching question of, do they do a Resident Evil 9 or do they go straight in with a Resident Evil 5 remake? I mean, if we look back to Resident Evil Village, we can definitely see that there was some, as you was playing the game, from a game design point of view and from a mechanic point of view, there were clear references to Resident Evil 4 remake. And I truly believe that up until this point, everything was a beta test for Resident Evil 4 remake. They were seeing what works. They were seeing what didn't work. You know, you think of Village, it had the attached case, it had the merchant, it had in-game currency, and it was like, hang on a minute, like I've seen this before. And then, you know, when the trailer did come out for a remake, everything just clicked. And as you're playing Resident Evil 4 remake, you're feeling the same type of way. They're like, hang on a minute, we've got an AI character who, in Lewis, who does bits and pieces. I can see this working as a multiplayer game. Yeah. So I think if they're going to do it, let's do Resident Evil 5 remake. But going back to Wesker specifically, I think it was a welcome change, changing the voice. I know we've been talking a lot about the voice actors and how they were directed. But yeah, the whole like pseudo English accent Wesker just never really worked for me. Like the classic, even was it Richard Waugh in Code Veronica? Yeah. That was Wesker. You know? So yeah, I'm happy they've finally gone back. But yeah, I'm not going to tell you my plan. But
here's my plan.
Have you got 5 minutes? I'm just about to tell you.
Here's my plan.
What a funny guy. But yeah, no, I would like to see them move on to RE5. If they're gonna, I mean, let's be honest. If they're gonna do it, just let's get it over with. And I think all of this is going to be dictated by how well Resident Evil 4 remake does sales-wise. And I think we can comfortably say, I mean, what did it sell, like 3 million in 2 days?
In 2 days.
That's phenomenal.
Crazy. So I think they're off to a good start. If their ultimate intention, I think they're going to have to, just like what they've done with Resident Evil 4 and some of the themes that were in Resident Evil 4 were and certain lines were cut, etc., to reflect a more modern audience. I'll be very interested to see how they do approach Resident Evil 5 remake. But listen, if it's even a quarter as good as Resident Evil 4 remake is, I mean, we're in for a right treat the next couple of years.
How about you, Beggy? What do you think about that ending and where you think the series is going to go next?
Yeah, I was extremely satisfied for multiple reasons. Once again, I love to see a refreshing new take on Wesker's voice. I love the enigmatic aura of Ada throughout 2 and 4, and after seeing her depiction in the S.D. Perry novels, I was really interested in the whole idea that Ada is not really very sentimentally attached to the motive of who she works for. She's like a mercenary and she just wants the cash. So when we finally do see that sort of turn in like RE4, now we have this like course correct with a helicopter. When we see her sort of weigh her emotions into her decisions more heavily, once that compassion starts bleeding through past the sort of robotic, the sort of the part of her that wants to just operate on, earning money and basically finishing her mission, her objective. So that clashing is very fascinating how they're building that up. And in terms of where it'll lead, I still personally think, if I'm going to guess right now, Wesker's going to get his hand on the amber, which is that special sample of plaga that was left that contains the dominant organ. That is by the file, as stated, it is looking to be equal to rival or even surpass what Sadler has synthesized for himself. So having that tell the story to us of 3 different variants of parasite bioweapons with any alpha parasite in RE3 remake, and then the real thing, the natural thing, synthesized into dominant species in RE4 remake, and then having a refined what's called a type 2 plaga in the original RE5 lore for developed by Tricell in RE5 remake. That would be, we always see that in Resident Evil of this process of making something mutate someone faster, making them stronger, from T to G, from progenitor to T to G, from any alpha to RE4 to RE5. It's a sort of parasite evolution. I think that's beautiful what it does to the continuity of the remake timeline. So for all those reasons, and then obviously 5, I would actually be even more excited than 4 than RE4 remake, because RE5 I've always seen it as it's just the entry that serves as the Garden of Eden of Resident Evil. It's where everything began with Marcus and the progenitor virus extracting the poisons from the Sonnentrop flowers, and why there is a mansion incident, why there are bioweapons born of these viruses. That's RE5, and I don't know if they want to. This is like something people have sort of speculated upon about how kind of is there going to be some sort of foundation built for Wesker through other games, right? And I don't know, but that's really fascinating because the original writing of Wesker, right? He was a stooge. He was a sort of treacherous ally character. He was a traitor character. That's all he was before he evolved into this sort of wanting to cleanse the human race villain, whose worldview was heavily influenced by Spencer. And so that whole RE5 storyline that weaves together the purpose and the existence of all of these bioweapons, it makes me see RE5 remake as potentially the perfect end to the remake timeline. It's kind of like thematically one of the best end points, had the series not continued, for the series is RE5. It's the ultimate, sort of brainchild and sort of adherent of Spencer's views, bringing about the most devastating threat to the world ever is RE5. So it's just like I'm losing my mind over that being a possibility.
I think so. What do you think, Corey?
Okay, skip Tony, but okay.
No, I didn't skip Tony today.
Oh yeah, no, you'll be next.
Oh yeah,
That's all right. I'll go.
Sorry.
No. So what's the question?
I actually didn't try that time.
What's the question?
No, Tony, go ahead.
Come on.
What do you think about that ending, and where do you think the series is going?
He's gonna say the same answer I'm about to say.
He's gonna take it from you.
I mean, honestly, I welcome an RE5 remake. Do we need it? Probably not, but Capcom's going to go where the money is. They're going to follow the money, and it was really cool to see, like, Excella and the area where the plants were and stuff. All that kind of stuff was really cool. I think they're going to go that route, but they're probably going to change a lot of things, but not, like, as much. There's probably going to be, like, a bigger plot, I think, for 5 than what we're getting, and if 5 does come back in some co-op kind of way, I think that what we've seen in terms of brutality of the Ganados in this game, I welcome a remake because 5 could be absolutely insane for what he is. And I love how Wesker sounds in this. I think he sounds great. I don't think there's ever really been a bad voice actor for Wesker. I mean, obviously people say, oh, it wasn't the first one. I was like, it's 1996. Voice acting in gaming wasn't, what it is now. But I still enjoyed the campiness of the old voices and everything. Always have and always will. So I feel that, yeah, like they're gonna go that route, and a 5 remake is gonna happen, and I think they're gonna explore a lot more in 5. So we'll just have to wait and see, honestly. But I am very strongly feeling, because of how much this is sold already, it's gonna
I
happen.
100%
Oh,
agree with
yeah.
you. Yeah, definitely.
It'll happen.
What about you?
But will Code Veronica happen first? Is what I want to say.
Well, I mean, okay, because that'll kind of touch on to where I'm going, so we'll just combine them.
yeah, combine them.
So I think it definitely 100% sets up a Resident Evil 5 remake.
It does.
And I'm okay with it if they take as much time and care as they did with 4 remake into 5 with the co-op. Resident Evil 5 has always been my favorite co-op game of all time. But to just jump from, if you look at Albert Wesker and his character building up to this point, Code Veronica was his reintroduction into the series, and it set up the rivalry between Chris Redfield and Albert Wesker, right? And so to kind of skip over that to jump right into 5, sure, it could be done, but it wouldn't be the same without having that.
Exactly.
And so I think that now, and now if we're going to go back to some of the discussions we had during our streams, they also skipped over the collapse of Umbrella, right, in the beginning, which means that we potentially may see that revisited in a future Resident Evil game. So we have the collapse of Umbrella, and we have the rivalry between Chris and Albert Wesker. So what better way to tee this up for a Resident Evil 5 remake than to jump into Code Veronica,
Exactly.
explain the downfall of Umbrella during that time and how Albert
up.
Wesker is now doing his own thing. That's perfect to put that in right before 4 and now into 5, where he's trying to get the Amber
Right.
to set up for 5 remake.
That's
like,
exactly right.
If they were ever going to remake Code Veronica, now is the absolute perfect time to do it. To see a young Redfield and Albert Wesker, and then now to revisit their rivalry in 5. And as Beggy said, and I completely agree, it really did kind of everything that you've done in Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, Code Veronica 4 was all building up to 5. And it was like the climax of that series, right? And that could be the perfect way to end this remake series that they're doing, right? And now that doesn't negate Resident Evil 9. They're still doing every other year, and whatever game that they're remaking next, they probably already began. But I guarantee you the sales of Resident Evil 4 are definitely going to help.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely going to help. So in the chat, what are you guys thinking? If you're watching the replay, let us know. What do you think is going to be next? Do you obviously Resident Evil 9, but what remake do you think they're going to do? Do you think they're going to set up the rivalry and discuss the collapse of Umbrella and Resident Evil Code Veronica remake and then do 5, or do you think they're going to just jump right into 5? But yeah, I mean, honestly, there's so much about this that we covered, and there's so much that we kind of left out. But just to kind of move things through, because I do got to go to work pretty soon here, I just want to say that I think we're all very positive on this game. I think that it is a solid remake. It is faithful when it needs to be. It improves where it needs to. And another thing we didn't touch on is obviously the character interactions. I think we can all agree that Luis had way more character. Ashley and Leon's dynamic is far more in-depth and I would say way better. Just all the interactions in general, it's just much more weight to them, much more expanded and much more improved as we would have liked to see in the original. So they definitely nailed it there. But I want to go through one more time. And Tony, don't worry, I won't skip you this time. I want to go through one more time, and I just want to get any closing thoughts on this before we jump into our support and super chats and read some of the comments here from the chat. Is there anything you want to discuss before we close this out, Andy?
Yes, please go out and buy this game. I see a couple of people in the chat already saying, is this a spoiler-free review? Please make the effort. Get this game completed. You will not regret it. It's a very special game. I mean, I know IGN has a very particular reputation, but they gave it a 10 out of 10. I mean, big companies gave it a 10 out of 10, and 10s aren't thrown around all the time. You can say, oh yeah, they gave it a 9, and they gave it a 9. Of course they're going to give it a 9. It's an IGN 9. They gave this game a 10. So for them to give it a 10 and for other people to give it 10s, it's a really special game. And just on a slight tangent, anybody in the UK this weekend that's going to be at the Insomnia Game Festival, Resident Evil are going to be there. So feel free to come up to us and we'll talk a lot of bollocks about Resident Evil. Continue.
There you go. How about you, Beggy? Anything you want to say before we jump into the super chats and comments?
Yeah, sort of building on to Luis, all of the character interactions. Luis has been woven into this storyline more overtly now. You actually find a file by his grandfather and you understand that this is no longer a battle between one of Sadler's researchers and him sort of trying to expose what the Los Illuminados have been up to, um, and sort of meeting Leon to finish that journey. But it is now a sort of battle between someone who is protecting the village, the people that raised him.
Yeah.
This is like Luis's hometown. His mother, um, his grandpa has like fallen to the plagas through a bite from colmillos, infected sort of a plaga infested wolf, and so kind of building that connection and incorporating it more directly, more overtly into the lore, it gives Luis and it gives the player and Leon much more of a sense of purpose of, you know, we're back here, and it's time to put an end to the evils once again after the resurgence of Los Illuminados. And I just love that so much. So there's a lot more in terms of intertwining the different plot lines and the motives of different characters that kind of more naturally stack against one common enemy than you would otherwise see in the original.
Yeah.
And more overtly, obviously tying Sadler to Umbrella and kind of continuing that legacy of Umbrella through all of these different incidents, Raccoon City incident. Now we have this village in Spain, and so there's all sorts of it kind of elevates Umbrella as not only this corporation that offers jobs and opportunities to the destitute, like in one region of the world, and transforming Raccoon City, but now we're really, it really feels like at this point in the remake continuity, they're building a franchise out of it. They're making Umbrella's influence larger, and they're really cementing it as this greater world power. And I think all of those additions are really mindful, and they're very thoughtful. And there's just so much to enjoy in terms of the narrative here. So his very evocative performance, Luis, made me cry a couple times. There's so much to be experienced and felt by the characters. It's so good.
Well said, you big baby. Moving on to Tony. No, I'm just kidding. Moving on to Tony. What would you like to say to close this out?
Much like Andy said, yeah, go buy this game, because if you want remakes of Code Veronica and you want a remake of RE5, companies only care really about one thing, and that's the money. If the money is making it in remakes, they're going to be like, maybe we should revisit the idea of a Code Veronica remake, because people love the remakes we've been making, and look what RE4 sold in 2 days. So definitely go buy this. It's worth the $60 asking price. It's one of those games where there is more content in it, and obviously this weekend they're gonna be launching the Mercenaries DLC, which is free. So that's gonna be amazing. I'll be playing that when I get back from Anime Boston.
Hell
but
yeah.
honestly, at the end of the day, this game, it was exactly what I wanted it to be. I feel that what was taken out of it was warranted. I feel that what was put in was absolutely amazing, and there's really not a part in this game where I'm just like, I just want this over with. Like, I'm done. I want to get by this part. This is boring. No, like, they truly crafted everything from graphics to acting to the tools given to you, the guns, the upgrading process, the treasure hunting, the missions. Everything about this just screams excellence, and it's definitely a game that you have to play if you're kind of like a little on the fence about it. If you really trust our opinion here, what we do at ROE, this is one of the ones we highly recommend that you spend the money on, because it's worth, obviously if you have the money, don't spend it if you can't afford it.
But it's solid. It's solid. How about you, Cory?
What? All I gotta say is they nailed it. Good job, Capcom.
Do it again.
Do it again, please. That's all I ask.
Again!
I'd say, man, I'm just happy to say we got a good remake. It's nice to say that I have a game that I want to go play. And now this discussion we had today, all it makes me want to do is go play Resident Evil 4 Remake again. And I can't because I got to go to work. But that's like, I'm just happy it's good, right? We've waited big shoes to fill, and they did it, and they killed it. And I agree with you, Tony. I think companies, they want money. They want sales. But the thing is, it's not just about the sales. Sales are number one, but the second thing is the user feedback. And it's getting well received everywhere. It just goes to show that if you take the time to do a faithful, proper remake, people will buy it, and it'll get good reviews. And that just makes me excited now to the future of what's coming. If this game is selling incredibly well and it's well received, what's the chance that we'll get you know, a Dino Crisis remake, a Haunting Ground remake. Like, what? And I'm not saying like when do the remakes end? When are we getting new games? We're probably still gonna get new games, new IPs. They're working on things right now, but it just goes to show that they made a good product. People like it, right? So I'm excited for the future of Resident Evil. I'm excited to see where Resident Evil 9 goes, and I'm excited to see what the next remake's going to be, and I'm excited to see if they're going to tap into other games. I think Dino Crisis would be the perfect game to come back right now. I mean, you'll have 2 survival horror juggernauts from Capcom. You'll have Dino Crisis and Resident Evil. How fantastic would that be? But yeah, overall.
Well, what you're saying is, honestly, sorry to
No, you're
interrupt,
fine.
but like what you're saying is exactly 100% correct
Yeah.
because, you know, because people always say, "Oh, I'm tired of remakes. We just keep getting remakes," but people act like they're not getting anything else. You've gotten 7, Village, and obviously RE9 at some point.
Yeah.
And we've gotten 3 remakes. So Capcom has the budget now to have these different teams to do these different things. So, you know, it is possible for like, you know, a Dino Crisis to happen and still us get new entries to other games. It's not like anything being taken away. And that's what I really hope Capcom realizes, that because we the fans realize that. So I hope they do too. I mean, they kind of have, because they have done the new games and the remake.
It shows that they're paying attention, right? And if I'm going to be greedy and I want to request one game that I want, I would love to see Outbreak return, man.
Oh, yeah.
RE engine, having multiple people in Raccoon City,
Oh,
man. This would be the
so
perfect
good.
time to do it, but I understand Code Veronica is probably more important to the story. But goddamn, man, Outbreak would be fantastic.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, but that's going to close out this portion of the video. I think we've all got in depth as we can with the time we had. There were so many more aspects we could have touched on, but I think that's a really good general consensus of where we're at with the game. Again, what are you guys thinking? Where are you reviewing it? Let us know. We're going to be reading the comments after, but right now we're going to go into the support. So thank you guys so much for the support, and thank you for your patience. We didn't want to interrupt the actual discussion, so we're going to go through those now. And then we're going to go through and read, you know, some comments here from the chat. We got Cumby Lad 123, member for 2 months, recruit. Thank you for the continued support. Says, how's it hanging? It's going good, man. It's going good. Except I got to work today. That sucks. Metal Mitch with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Metal Mitch. Just beating the game last night. Resident Evil 4 Remake, completely phenomenal. Yeah, I think we all agree there. Pretty much what we said here. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Twinkle Toe was 1985, member for 23 months. Bravo team, almost 2 years of support. Thank you so much for that, Twinkle Toes. So excited for this. One of the best games of the year. I think this is definitely a game of the year contender for me personally. How about you guys? What are you thinking?
Front runner for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's some big competition coming.
I feel sorry
easy.
for Dead Space.
Yeah.
I really feel sorry for Dead Space because if it was 1 month earlier, they would have clutched 2022.
Yeah.
But it came out at the same time as RE4.
Yeah. And honestly, like, and this is I told Cory I was gonna work this in somehow. It was gonna be, and I am. I think that Street Fighter 6 and RE4 for me are gonna be like their contenders, but I think Street Fighter 6 might actually take a back seat to RE4, which
Whoa.
that's huge for me because you guys know me in Street Fighter. So.
But it will. Corey says it will.
I mean, come on.
Street Fighter 6 does look great.
No, it
though.
does look pretty good though. Yeah.
It does, and like everything they're doing in that game looks great. But something about RE4 so far is just like this is everything.
Yeah.
So
How about you, Beggy? Game of the year contender?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to take
Like the
it.
shortest answer from Beggy ever.
Can I get a hell yeah?
Hell yeah.
yeah.
Hey,
There we go.
You can
Hell
elaborate.
yeah.
Feel free to elaborate on that, Becky, please.
And what?
We got Caleb.
Okay. Kelamataton Cassetti.
Yeah, you butchered that. Welcome to Rose Squad Recruit, our first member of the day. Thank you so much for your
nailed
support.
that, don't even lie.
Spam those custom emojis. You've unlocked them. And let's all welcome Kayla to the Rose Squad.
That's probably how you say it.
And then Kayla again with a €1 super chat. Thank you so much for your support, Kayla. Nothing to say, just showing the support. We appreciate that. We got Rule Time with a very generous $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Rule Time. We greatly appreciate it.
All the ROE team is here, each incredible in their own way. Thanks for the discussion. RE4 Remake is masterful.
Thank you so much for that. And we are missing Andrew and Bob today, but they're here with us in spirit. No, they are not dead. They are just busy.
That we know.
We know of, yeah.
That we know of.
Carrier, a Raccoon City story with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much for the support, Carrier.
The boy.
Yeah, your boy, my boy too. Yeah, I can't wait for episode 2. Man, it's coming. It looks good.
This game gets an F because Leon still ends up getting his jacket stolen.
Oh shit. Dude, I can't wait for, okay, if Separate Ways comes out, we gotta get one of the Ganados wearing Leon's jacket. That was my favorite thing about the original Resident Evil 4 is going through and seeing the Ganado that stole his
That was the
jacket.
best.
I hope
Yep.
she kills him and gets it back for Leon. That's an expensive jacket.
Right?
Yeah. Sorrow X95, member for 15 months. Recruit, thank you for the continued support. Nothing to say. Sir Atazukin, Elder of the Row, member for 31 months. Row Squad Alpha Team, the winning team. Thank you for the long-time support, Atazukin. Well said, Beggy. Well freaking said. The review bar is set very high. Okay, boys, try to top that. Now she can say it
wins.
better than we can. Yeah, she wins. Resign BC27 with a very generous $10 super chat. Thank you so much for the support. I love Krauser. I aced all the Krauser fights without getting hit once.
Damn.
They made me feel like I was actually performing my favorite QTE from the 2005. I've beaten the game 5 times and platinumed it. Hell yeah, that's good. And
Whoa.
do you not feel like a badass when you're fighting Krauser and you actually get it
Isn't
down?
that fun?
It's sick, dude. I love how they did that
so
without
much
being
fun.
a cute quick time event, but actual gameplay. Very, very well done. Cascade, member for 24 months. Rose Squad Bravo team, congratulations and thank you for 2 years of support, Cascade. My Red Wings have been granted. He's now got the Red Wings on his row badge. Hell yeah. The Southern Locust, member for 11 months. Alpha team, thank you for almost a year, the Southern Locust. To be honest, Krauser really sounded like Baldur from God of War 2018 for me. Ada's voice also really grew on me. I just seemed like her voice was edited well in post. Really blew me away as a new RE4 player. Man, that was your first time playing Resident Evil 4. That had to have been a really good experience.
Right?
I definitely think that, for me personally, this doesn't take the place as being better than the original. The original is still phenomenal, and I think they sit really well next to each other, and you can kind of jump between the two. Gary
Better.
with a £5. Thank you, Gary. Dino Crisis could remake 1 and 2, and if they do it good, it could bring interest into continuing the franchise and retcon 3 and make a new game.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would agree with that. I do. I'm sure there's got to be some people that like Dino Crisis 3, but I've not heard any.
No, there isn't.
I've not heard any.
I don't think I've ever read
That thing
either.
is universally fucking hated.
And then Seth Liller with a $1 super chat. Thank you so much, Seth. Nothing to say, just showing the support. Thank you. And thank you guys
Hell
all
yeah.
so much for the support, helping support the channel. We greatly appreciate that. By no means do you have to. We just appreciate you come to join us in these discussions and when we're playing games. So thank you so much. The fact that you do means a lot. So thank you guys. And to everybody in the chat, let's see. I want to get one more time. What do you review Resident Evil 4 Remake? 1 out of 10. Let us know. Sound off. And we're going to get the general consensus. I know we did it earlier. And it seems to be right around high 8s to 10. Some people will say 11 out of 10. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else we should touch on before we close this one out today? I think we covered it all pretty well.
I think we did pretty good.
I think we're good.
I mean,
It's pretty
there's
good.
a lot of references to Operation Javier.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be against, instead of doing separate ways, maybe do Operation Javier.
Why not do both?
Or if you remember, just on that concept art, Wesker had a bloody arm.
yeah.
So I'm wondering if that is a Wesker. You know what Beggy was talking about Wesker going and grabbing something
Going to grab.
important, and he gets a bloody arm somehow.
He hurt his arm
I don't
grabbing
know.
that something.
We'll see.
Yeah, there was what was the one thing? Yeah, so my question was, I couldn't remember this. Was Leon at Operation Javier
Yeah.
with Krauser, or was that just a Krauser thing?
No, that was.
Leon was
Oh,
Go ahead, Beg.
what, OG or in RE4 remake
In the
lore?
RE4 remake.
Oh, yeah. That's a good question.
That's a good question because in the file it says all of Krauser's unit was wiped out except for Major
Oh, shit.
Krauser.
Yeah.
Did they remove?
I
So I don't know
don't
if
know.
like, Leon was just an agent that was sent in, so he's not part of the unit. So I was kind of thinking to myself, and then it kind of seems like Leon drops hints that like he was there and everything. So I don't know, man. For me, it just sounds. I was like, man, if they do this, I really hope that's the situation. Like that Leon was there, but he wasn't part of the unit because he's an agent, not a military guy. So even though Krauser was shown training him and shit. So I don't know, like maybe it's just
Interesting.
something that Krauser went off and did. Like he has his own unit or whatever. But it'll be interesting because I'd really not like to see them take Leon out of that because
Yeah.
in Darkside Chronicles, Operation Javier was an amazing part of that game.
Yeah.
So
I would like to see
Yeah.
that
Very
redone and told as a DLC. That'd be fantastic.
yeah.
I think Separate Ways is most likely coming. We got Mercenaries coming for sure this Friday. But if this game sells phenomenally well, who's to say that they don't say, hey, you know what? Just like we did with Village, we're going to start working on DLC right now, and you will get your Operation Javier, or you will get a Wesker grabbing that thing and hurting his arm. You know, who's to say that they won't do that? There's always potential.
Yeah.
The sales and the numbers are there and the reception is there. They could. I would love to see a lot of DLC for this game, but not rush DLC. I'd like to see it well done. There's so many stories that could be told branching off this. And who's to say that we don't go back into like a Revelation series or something after this? We don't know. I just want raid mode back, baby. RE Engine raid mode. Just give it to me.
Yes,
so good.
raid mode. Fuck yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there because Wesker's sort of usage of retrieving the T Veronica virus from Steve's body is actually how Javier Hidalgo actually gets it for himself. He has actually sold it, the virus from Wesker.
Yep.
So Wesker actually sells it off to him, and then that's how the sort of malformation of his daughter goes about, and his wife, I believe, too.
I'm putting the lore together in my head and trying to figure out the timeline, how this is going to work with the original timeline and the remake
If you wanted
timeline.
to talk about,
It's literally a Back to the Future thing where he's like, if Leon talks to this guy in 1984 and the plug is given to this guy in 1997, like that's literally what's going on.
That's my head right now.
Also, a quick one as well.
Smoking.
Just so I remember, RE4 is going to have a VR implementation at some point.
that's true.
I wouldn't even want to fathom what that game is going to be like in VR with, because I think Beggy mentioned it. They don't. It's not like RE4, like Meta Quest RE4, where they're always really in front of you. They're fucking behind you as well. So like they're like all over the place.
Dude, that's going to be sick.
And
I totally forgot about
that. Might be a bit overwhelming.
I'm so excited for that. Actually, that's why I got the PSVR 2 is 4 Village and 4. So hell yeah, I'm excited. Lots of good things coming. Lots of stuff to be excited for. And there's always Resident Evil 9 right around the corner. Got a few more super chats I'm going to read, then we're going to close her out. We got Combo McNeil, member for 2 months, Bravo team, with 9.5 rating. Thank you for the continued support, and that's pretty solid. We got Volt 35 with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much for the support. Could you see them making a DLC game of Wesker's Umbrella Sergi takedown from Chronicles RE Red Queen title, perhaps? Ooh, that'd be cool. That'd be really cool.
I'd like that.
They could do that. They really could. I mean, like I said, I think that this game doing well and making a lot of money is going to open up the doors to a lot of other really cool ideas that they could have. DLC for Wesker's Umbrellas, yeah. I'd be for it. How about you guys? Be for it?
I'd pay for that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would love that.
And then Rayshine, Alpha of Hype, with an incredibly generous $20 super chat. Thank you so much for that, Rayshine. We really appreciate it. RoFam Hype, hell yeah, and that's where we're going to close it out today. So thank you guys all so much for joining us for this Resident Evil 4 Remake review discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you also enjoyed that we're bringing back the podcast. We would like to do more of these in the future. It's been a while since we did an actual discussion podcast. So if you did enjoy this, please hit that like button. Let us know what you guys like to see. So thank you all for joining us. I'm going to be uploading this to our audio platforms sometime later this week, so stay tuned for that. We're at Row Network on Apple, Android, all those different services. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you for sticking around with us, hanging out. If you have anything you would like to input on this discussion, let us know down below in the comments. We'll be reading those and going through them. But I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and we hope to see you back at the Residence of Evil. Good night, everybody.
See you guys.